Hey, and welcome to the CSC 510 Screencast. I'm Raghav, and with me here is Rupak. So, we are continuing with our analysis of web developer tools that we have chosen for this project. So, the three tools that we picked up were for the three popular browsers out there in the market today. One is the F12 developer tools for IE, we have the Chrome developer tools for Chrome, and the Firebug extension for Firefox. In the blog post, we looked at the HTML, CSS, and DOM panels in detail of each of these tools, how they help a developer to find issues in these three domains. In the podcast, then we looked at the JavaScript and the console panels in each of these three tools. So, what we want to do here before we start with the other panels today is briefly look at how, like we talked about how the JavaScript and console panels are looking more and more like an IDE, a runtime IDE for debugging JavaScript for web applications. So we briefly want to go through and demo what we are talking about in the screencast using a web application that we have built up. So Rupak will take that over.
Yeah, so we've been looking at, we decided we've been looking at different kinds of web applications which are already there on the internet, but we felt that the best way to understand and see these tools would be to actually make something on our own so that we are the actual developer. And we made a small tic-tac-toe game. This is an Ajax-based game. We made it Ajax-based so that we can use it for debugging. The game works very simply. You just click on a square and the computer responds, and this is pretty much how the game works, and the computer tries to win. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly show you how the console works. I think we started off last time talking about console logging. So essentially console.log of anything will just log it on the console. You can see the word hello over here. So now I'm going to play a particular move and then show you what exactly happens. When I click here, it's played. There is a post request to the system which generates the next move, and it gives back a JSON object which says the game is currently in progress and the next move is 4, and this is the fourth box. So that's where the computer has played. What I am also going to show you now is how we can use the scripting panel for debugging. Over here we go to script and we have the different scripts this page is loaded, and I'm going to load the tic-tac-toe handler. This is the script which we have written for this application, and over here every time a new move is played there's a function called computer play which is called. I am going to add a breakpoint right before the move is played, or right before it's sent to the system to generate the next move, and let's see what happens. So now I decide to play a move over here, and you can see that over here there is a play button which says that it stopped right over there. So I have the different options of rerunning, continuing, and stepping into. These are all different things which you definitely see on an IDE when you're working with C++ or Java or any of those languages. On the right you have watch, stack, and breakpoints. So essentially it shows you the arguments which I'm sending, like the user move, and it's got a toString function. It shows you other things about the window and different jQuery data. Most of this is like jQuery data is essentially not coded by us, it's just part of the jQuery library, but it shows you different things you can do with the objects. And the stack is essentially whatever has, I mean, it's just like a usual stack in any programming language. And you can also list the different breakpoints which you've used and what are the breakpoints you actually want to work with. So now I'm just going to continue execution of the code. It will now request and the response is got. If we go back to the console, we see that there has been the request and the next move was 1, which is 0 1, and then it's come back with a progress and it says box 1. So this is essentially how the scripting and the console panels work.
Yeah, and another thing that I find interesting here is the way, I mean, probably because we don't have errors here, but you can probably just filter by different types of things on the console so that, if you have a huge console log happening, then you can sort of look at something of interest. So if you're just looking at errors, you can just, drill down to it and it'll just display you the JavaScript errors.
And Yeah, so we decided to use Firebug, and pretty much, I mean, Firebug for this demo, pretty much all the tools are very similar, except, we discussed some of the different things last time. But yeah, this is exactly how the scripting panels and console panels work. So now we're going to look at the networking panel, profiling, and some other panels which are not common among the three tools we're using. The networking panel basically records all network activity by the application. Profiling is basically to analyze JavaScript memory and timing and stuff like that. And the other panels are something which I just mentioned as not common. So we're looking at the network panel. Basically, it's for logging all requests and responses by the application. It is essentially a starting point for missing and error resources or errored resources. For example, if you're having an Ajax-based application and there's an error in your response because of a state which you didn't account for, you could use as a starting point to find out where the error came from and what it's done. It also helps in looking at cookies, and you can essentially filter every request based on the resource.
Moving to the actual comparison between the network panels, what we'll take a look at is these at a broad level, these 4 points. Each of them has a network table structure where each resource is displayed as a row. We can see the detailed information for the request and response for each resource. Then there's a cool timeline view, which is like a graphical representation for that interaction on the network and what kind of exporting capabilities are available in each tool. So going to the simple web application that we have built, so this is basically the network trace for pulling just the web page. We can see here it has pulled the HTML, the concerned CSS, JavaScript files. So had there been an instance where one of these resources was missing, then we could have seen a 400 error, and it would have been easier for us to drill down and look why that resource is missing on the server. I'll quickly look at what stuff is particular to Chrome DevTools. One thing we found was it's the way it displays the detailed information for a particular resource is it has a better UI layout. So you can see here when I clicked on the JavaScript file, it shows me the request and response, HTTP request response headers for this particular resource, then gives me a nice preview of it and displays the individual timing information for this particular row. Something further that we can look at is if I want to export this trace, right? So if I right click, this is something that's unique to Chrome again. It lets me export this content in two ways. So I can export a particular row as a curl command, which you can probably run it from your command line. But I can also export the whole trace as an HAR, which is like an HTML archive. This is something that's again not offered by the other tools. It allows me to sort of preserve this log upon navigation. So what other tools will do is usually reload the network. If there is an explicit HTTP request being made, they'll sort of clear the contents currently and they'll reload the contents. But if I click on this button and then do any network activity, you can see that my original network content is still present. So that's for Chrome. Let's take a look at our F12 developer tool. So this is basically, let me reload the page. So this is the same site on this tool. Uh, what you have to do here is, so you can see that there are some there are some differences we see in F12 developer tools. One is that it doesn't explicitly show me the domain it's pulling the resources from. So it's kind of, it's not as easy to take a look at, where this stuff is being get from. I don't really know if this stuff is being pulled from the cache or not. What we found was we need to take a look at the timing, and if the timing is like really small, we could figure out that it's being pulled from the cache. Chrome developer tools and even Firebug were able to able to explicitly state that they were pulling it from the browser cache. Other than that, the timing view has a nice hover over, and it gives you the individual uh, times taken. This is the detailed view for F12 developer tool. This is pretty standard. This is what we see in all the tools. It breaks down the request and response and the body and the headers into different tabs, which we found is it's a better way to present stuff. Then you can take a look at the quick cookies and the initiator and the timings here. So that's pretty, normal. Rupak will talk about the Firebug network panel now.
Yeah. So let me quickly find Firebug. So I'm back to our same application over here, and let me see, let me move here. The network panel here is again, it's pretty much similar to all the other things. They add a remote IP. This could be redundant because the domain is over here, but I guess if you're visiting websites with a lot, I mean, when it's loading with the same domain, maybe which have different remote IPs because they're load balanced, that could be of help. And the filtering is done pretty much just like in Chrome, and otherwise, it's pretty interesting, except that here, when you load anything, it's not loaded on this side, but it expands. One of the things that I found with this the expanding is that when you have many requests, you start expanding all of them. You can't collapse all of them at the same time, which turns out to be a little, a little clunky as a user interface. But pretty much everything else is the same way. You've got the cookies panel over here. Where you can look at the cookie details and post and the responses, and something which is interesting which we noticed in Chrome with comparison to Firebug is that the response over here happens to be JSON. Chrome let you play around with the JSON object by actually expanding it like a tree like structure and doing what you want with the object, whereas in Firebug it's just represented as text, and I think that's the same case with IE as well. So that's the network panel for you. Okay, I'm just going to quickly show you the cookies panel over here, which Firebug has. This is kind of integrated in Chrome and IE, but the interesting thing about the cookies panel, specifically with Firebug, is that it lets you do more than what the other panels let you do. You can essentially look at the cookies, sort them by, different properties like HTTP, security, the domain. You can choose what kind of cookies you want to accept, and you can certainly deny all cookies from a site if you want to, for debugging purposes, but you can also add a cookie. So what I'm going to try and do here is create a cookie, and I'm going to say test cookie. You can set all different values. You can set when it expires, and you can put the cookie over there. So if you want to emulate cookies for certain purposes when debugging or creating your application, you can do so. You can also edit existing cookies by doing this, and you can obviously delete cookies. So this is more than what Chrome and IE offer. Of course, you can view cookies in similar fashion in Chrome and IE, but editing and adding features is only available in Firebug.
Yeah, so now we'll go back and take a look at the remaining panel, which is the profiler panel. Uh, only so we noticed that only IE and Chrome developer tools support the profiling option. The vanilla Firebug does not, but we notice it like one of the powerful features of Firebug is it's an extensible tool, so it allows people to build features upon it. But what IE offers in terms of profiling is just timing-based profiling, which is something similar to what the networking panel does. The Chrome developer tools gives you a more extensive has a more extensive approach in this domain. So it, along with the timing, it has a CPU and heap based profiling, and it allows you to save and generate and save reports. I'll quickly take a look at the profiler and for Chrome and see how it's helpful. So this is our application again. It's been loaded. The user interface for the profiles panel is pretty straightforward. Let's say I want to collect JavaScript CPU profile. I click on start. I play around with my app. It calls JavaScript functions, and after this, I am done. So I click on stop profile. So it has created a CPU profile. What this table is basically a report saying for each JavaScript function what is the CPU time it consumed. This can be helpful to help and optimize your app if you have some JavaScript call that's taking more time than expected. So this we found is pretty useful. Um, Similarly, you can do the same stuff for heaps. So yep, I guess that's it for about screencast. Thank you.
Thank you.